Hello and welcome to another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. You're halfway between a post-con hangout and interview show. I'm Andrew, the host of that aforementioned Indiepocalypse Radio, the show that, of course, is the radio show companion piece to the monthly anthology Indiepocalypse. Here today we've got a team show. As I think of them, we've got a full crew here, all from the studio collective, the large group Afroduck Studios. It's Quincy Christian, Elena Garcia, and James Kohler. Hello, how are all you all doing today?
Good.
We're doing great. Excited to be here. Whoop,
Yeah,
whoop.
I finally got over being sick for a
Oh,
week and a half, so I'm feeling pretty good right now.
fantastic! That's I can kind of hear the lingeringness of it. It could have just been your voice, but now I am like, nope, that is clearly someone who was sick.
Yes, you might hear some coughing every so often. I assure you, I am all right.
Perfect. Yes, and also it's not nothing contractable through the digital airwaves. We do not have yet dystopian digital viruses.
Yes.
You're right.
Don't you worry.
Have you guys seen that Courage the Cowardly Dog episode where he goes into the computer and it has a virus and he gets sick from it? That's the day I'm waiting for.
Right.
That is the true apocalypse.
It will come one. I'm sure there is no endless supply of really middle of the road cheap budget movies about computer viruses infecting the real space. But no, I realized. I've talked on the show before. I haven't really been sick at all in like 5 years.
Oh, dang.
Like,
You avoid getting COVID?
oh no, I got COVID. Okay, I got COVID a couple times.
Oh, I got COVID.
Don't worry.
But I wasn't that. I also wasn't that sick from it, all things considered. Weirdly enough,
That's
it was like I got it worse from the vaccine than the actual. Like I feel sick. I was at work. I'm like, I feel sick. I got tested. I went home. I went to sleep. I woke up. I'm like, I feel fine. And now I got 5 days off of work.
Hey.
Love that.
Yeah,
Oh.
paid days
Love
off
that.
of work too.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if this is a countrywide thing, but I get like, in addition to whatever company, a lot of time, like Massachusetts gives you sick time, like state mandated sick time,
Oh, wow.
or like sick paid hours. You get like 40 a year.
Nice.
40 a year. I'm trying to think how Ohio works. Is it by company or?
I think it's by company. Because,
Okay.
my company, we just accumulate sick time, but it never expires and it
Yes.
just keeps going.
Mine expires. Mine is
Yes.
my yeah, so like at my last job, they lumped in vacation time, sick time,
Yeah.
personal days, and it was just all PTO.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like
that-
my job,
yeah, that is
It's-
like my like I have company PTO, but this is like, and it's only a couple of years old, I think, relatively. It's like a separate, like, it has a word. There's a term for it, I'm sure, but I forget what it is. But it's like, no, this is state mandated sick time. That is like independent of any kind of like company accumulation. Like there are things that accumulate like in parallel.
Okay. Nice.
But
That's-
that is part of that is related. We talk about our jobs having things. That is part of the independent life of not having a budget to like, oh, let's all work on our games full time for 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because we
Oh,
have.
3.
And speaking of games, you're not just in some kind of like nebulous studio that may or may not be working on something. You have a game that you are working on. You bring out to events. If people aren't familiar, what is this game?
Elena gestures to me.
I was
So-
doing that too.
Oh, you're virtually.
And I was nodding, waiting expectantly.
All right. Well, let's not keep people waiting. So, the game that we are creating is called Zakumba Estrella. which is an African-inspired action RPG that tells the coming-of-age story about a young girl whose mission is to make friends, but realizes that she has friends along the way as she builds tools and incredible equipment to help her village.
Nice, quick, and concise. It's got a. I'll say personally, it has a great look to it.
Thank you.
Because I do not have a lot of time often to travel at events. We had met briefly at game developer. I was trying to think, like, what does GDEX stand for? I don't know.
Game Developers Expo.
Yes,
is what it stands
Yeah.
It's one of those weird
Yeah.
things where two letters stand for one word.
for. One word, yeah.
But I was like, oh, I want to stop by this booth at some point, but obviously I do not often
Yay.
have time to
I
sit,
think-
play things. I have a duck sitting near a shelf I have somewhere.
Getting the duck. And that's honestly, I think that's what helped us. It was so random. I brought a bag of ducks, and every single person that even glanced at our booth, we gave a duck to.
Right.
yeah.
And that prompted them to be like, so wait, what's with the duck? And then, oh, what's with the girl? Oh, what's with the game? Oh,
Yes.
we draw them in with the duck, and they stay for Estrella.
No, I loved it. Like, I left the booth with one pocket full of business cards and another pocket full of ducks.
Yes.
And I was like, the second someone spoke to me, I'm like,
Have a duck.
so you might notice I got a little exhibitor pass.
Exactly. Yeah, have a duck. No,
Card, have a
nobody,
duck.
nobody nobody declined a duck. There was one person I had that was like unsure, and I was like, here's a duck, and then he was so happy because it was like an older adult, like his little 2-year-old girl was running around, and he wasn't sure if he was allowed to have fun, and I'm like, dude, have a duck, it's fine, tell your little girl to come back and have a duck too. Nobody said no to.
I think the next step is to put afros on that duck.
That's gonna be hard. Find
Yes.
ducks.
That-
I get my printer up and running.
We'll
Right.
talk about it later. Anyway,
make it custom ducks ready to go, or
it would be great.
I mean, alternatively, just get a little your craft store pile of fuzz and some glue, and spend a lot of time.
That could be.
A
Yeah,
lot of time.
I guess we'll have our. Hey James, you can do it. You don't do anything except write part of the story. It's not that important.
It's like I got plenty of time. Plenty of time.
You're right. It's just that's the life of the benefit of having more than one person working on a game. You can have them do different things sometimes.
Yeah, even though we have so many people on our project,
Right.
everybody is multi-skilled. There's not been a single person that's joined the team that has not learned 2 or 3 new skills. I think James is like the perfect example. He came on just as an intern and an editor, and now he's actually working in engine making cutscenes in Unity. It's awesome.
Right. It's because especially with where you don't have like a full time team, like you're not like a fully like, hey, we're a big budgeted studio that can pay 10, 20 people as their full time jobs. Time ebbs and flows, and then people are like, okay, well, we need someone to do this, and this is the person who's available right now.
Yep.
Like, what if you learn how to do this so you can cover this person's time? And
Absolutely.
And so, how long has the game been? Or not like I'm sure as plenty of games are, they exist in some form or another for decades within people's brains. But
Yeah.
I would say that this current version that you are like working on.
Yeah. My PR team would tell me to say that it's been roughly around like 2 years, but legitimately this instance of the project, we've been working on it for about 3.5 to 4 years. The idea started almost like 10 years ago when I started college, because I was with my best friend Nick, and he's one of our founders. Huge shout out to Nick, one of my best friends. He and I were just playing games, the old school Final Fantasy. The specific game we were playing was called Lunar Silver Star Story for the
Yeah.
PS1. And we loved that game. And we just, in our brain, was like, wait, people do this and make money for a living for the why can't we do it? And it kind of started the spark of where we want to make a video game that's a fantasy, that's an RPG, and it grew over the years from an idea to a concrete conception to, hey, let's start bringing people in to get the ideas. And there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of trial and error, lots of ups, lots of downs, a lot of
Right.
downs. But where we currently are now is an accumulation of all the hard work that we've done, the people that we've met, the incredible amount of passion and dedication that each one of our members, past and present, have shown, and just how much people believe in this story and what this game can represent and what our studio does represent. So, all in all, and I know that was a very long answer to
Yeah.
directly answer your question, the game itself, where we are now, 4 years, but the idea has really been a long time coming, over the course of like that 10-year period.
Right. And I think that's an important thing that kind of gets lost sometimes in like public consciousness of indie games of, oh, look at this indie game that came out this year. And then people don't see like, because everyone, your 5 to 10 years will end on like, say, 2026, and someone else's 5 to 10 years will end on 2027. And to
Yep, yep.
the public, it's like, oh, this is this year's indie releases.
Yeah.
Not
They don't
realize,
see the behind it.
right. Not realizing that one of those indie releases they really like, it took that team, that person, sometimes like 5, 10 years to make that one game, and
Yep.
it will take them another 5 to 10 years to make another one, maybe, unless it's like
Yep.
a huge, massive runaway success that gives you a ton of money and allows you to use the money to bypass that time.
Which we will 100%. I am saying it right now.
Yes.
Zakumba Stray will be a big success, and we will not take another 10 years to make the next.
Yeah, and also, like the benefit of making a game is that you've got all this like groundwork or whatever to, like let's not rebuild the game from scratch. We built a lot of the stuff already. Why not use a lot of it to make like people like it just took off in recent years, but Yakuza obviously that's the strength of RGG and their ability to put out so many games is they reuse tons of stuff constantly.
Oh, absolutely. I love the Yakuza series. When they pivoted into like the Like a Dragon,
Yeah.
I was like, this is like the other games were fun, but now this is like just cartoon fun, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it is right. It's taking it is the where the protagonist is no longer a straight man,
Yep. I love it. I love series that do that. Kind of like the funny enough, the same publisher, Sega.
Yeah.
Persona games were a spin-off from the Shin Megami Tensei games. If you've ever heard of those.
Yes.
And that blew up so hard where it's become its own just separate conglomerate.
It is it's eclipsed Shin Megami Tensei like tenfold, it feels like. Like
yeah.
There were there were Persona, Rhythm, and Muso games and whatever.
Yep.
Where there's another Shin Megami Tensei every, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe, if that.
Yep.
That.
Yep.
And there are like so many kind of like Megaten spin-offs too.
There are.
That's like why Persona? Why not Raiden Kuzunoa? Why not Soul Hackers? You know,
Soul Hacker,
like
Digital Devil Saga.
yes, like, and it's just like Persona happened to be the one that took off,
Uh,
uh,
yeah.
like got that kind of like probably that like Persona 3 buzz bled into a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people paying attention to Persona 4.
Yep. I just recently played, and it's funny we're talking about Persona because when my team hears this podcast, they're gonna be like, Quessy was able to talk about Persona. Because Persona is like my game. I
Yes.
think James, Elena, you
Yeah.
guys can agree, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
that was a very neat
shaking my
segue.
head this whole time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We won't dive in too long. I will say this: when Persona 3 came out, I didn't have it, but on the PS2, it honestly invigorated me more to want to create an RPG that had kind of that confidant like system, which is
Yeah.
what we're not doing with Estrella, but it's something I really, really want to explore with other games. And Persona has been such a huge influence on our projects. Really, really big.
Yeah, because that it is like there are so many sorts of avenues for like what game design are, and like it's about like picking here and there, uh and also like finding influence from other non-game sources. Like
Yep.
I think it's probably not a bold claim to say there are not too many African inspired games you can draw influence from, you know.
Not a lot.
Not a whole lot. They are out there, and I will give
Yeah.
huge props out to, like, there's this one game that came out earlier this year called
Yes.
Zao Tales of Kenjaru, which is kind of a platform action adventure game. Really well built, very beautiful. It's so stylistic. Character does a really good job with representation. It gives you like Black Panther vibes without all of the whole technology and Marvel Jesus stuff inside of it.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, there's games out there. They're just not a lot. And one of the biggest goals for our studio with Zakumba Estrella is to bring that representation out, and try to get it into the mainstream from an indie level.
Right, right. And for them not to be like, "Oh, here's the one game this year," you know. Uh
Yep,
which I think
exactly.
sometimes, things kind of like, especially I was talking about this with somebody else offline, if you can dare to do that. But the idea of, sometimes when people put like things into boxes of just like, oh well, this is not just a game; it's a game that fits within this category, And I think
Yeah.
that sometimes comes with when very few games take an influence from something. They kind of sometimes get like put in that little box of.
Yep.
So like the more that come out, the less like, oh, it
Yeah.
feels awkward to put these games in this box when there is like tons of them every year.
Exactly. And it's so funny because like representation is something that's very big for me, which is why all of our characters are of like Black and African descent.
Yeah.
But I think back to the very first game where I actually saw a Black character, and it was Final Fantasy VII. It was
Right, and
Barrett.
and that's one of those things where it's like, uh, it's not it's obviously like that should be a thing where it's like, oh, it's the first game I played and that was Final Fantasy VII, not like I played 30 or 40 games until I found my first Black character, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
kind of like one of the misfortunes of art. Then you realize when it's like one of those things when you think about it more often, of like,
hmm
there's a lot of white guys in all of these things.
yeah. But hey, that's the goal, and
Yeah,
because from a consumerist mindset, there's no market for it, so there is a market. It's an untapped market.
right.
So us doing it gives us a little bit of an edge to be able to display what it could be. Because I don't think we're perfect. I think there's a lot more that we could do.
Yeah.
Australia, I want to be part of the spark that brings other creators out of the woodworks to explore those specific cultures or ones that haven't been represented.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes it takes like even from like the that kind of like crass commercialist standpoint of, oh look, this thing was a success. Where can we find all this other stuff that's been existing for years, but just like the
Mm-hmm.
people with the money didn't see the market there,
Yep.
So they like, let's not pay attention to this. But like suddenly, if there's money to be made somewhere, um, people will be like, oh yeah, I care about this thing now. I actually always cared about it. Definitely always cared
Oh,
about it.
yep. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the cool kids are doing now.
Right. Didn't suddenly start to care about it because it was worth money to me.
Yep.
But it is like, so what is the feeling going out to? Because we had met briefly to different degrees. I think I spoke to Elena the most at GDEX, but to different degrees. How is it bringing the game out to events?
It's overall fun, and it's always very interesting to just see people's reactions.
Yeah.
I mean, physically bringing the game to events is not really bad. It's just set up, put our computers up, whatever. But I think the coolest thing about going to these events is like GDEX, for example. We've been to GDEX a few times, and this past GDEX, we actually had a few people come up and say, "Hey, I remember this game. I remember this from like last year, a few years ago, you know?"
Yeah.
And just to see their reaction to where we are now is huge. Like, as you know, like we're all artists here in some way, shape, or form. It's very hard as individuals to notice and like fully recognize like any improvements or progress. It can be hard.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and to have someone just come up and be like, "This is amazing. You've come so far. It's so great. I'm so excited." Like that's such a boost, you know?
Yeah, especially because you're often seeing your improvements. Like it's the eternal artist torment of you see it like bit by bit by bit by bit. So you don't get to experience the massive year to year change because you saw it the changes every single day.
Yeah, we're in a cave of our own, just development filth. Just like, oh, this is sucks. I don't know what's going. And then you bring it and show people, and their eyes sparkle. And then
Right.
we're like, you like this? Wait. And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And what's also cool about, our game in showing it off is just the range of people who really loved playing the demo. And that's just all we have right now is a demo. We've had anywhere from like little kids to old people and everything in between. Everyone like gave us some sort of positive feedback.
Mhm.
And that it feels good, and it's just so exciting to get
Yeah.
it out there and get even more people.
Yeah, and even those who gave us like critical feedback, it was never from a place of, oh, I think, you could do it better. It was always like, I like where you're going. Let me give you this feedback to go further
Right.
because I think you go well. And everybody in our team takes feedback differently. For me, I always want to hear the criticals because it helps me know how are we going to improve, get better, get bigger, whatever. So hearing people actually take the time to talk about certain mechanics or how they feel when they're playing the game or certain, aspects of the design, that for me, I can speak for myself, is a big booster because it gets me excited to go back and be like, all right, we can tweak this, we can make this like that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it is like it's so different than like even if it's just a person going to your game and going to your booth and just playing it and saying, "Oh, I like this." That is in some ways like functionally the same as maybe you posted a demo online and somebody likes it, your post, that person may have got the same experience, but there is a different feeling of seeing a person like it and them telling you rather than them clicking a little heart icon that you see your heart icon number went up by one.
That's very true. It's more interactive that way. And I can definitely say, and James, you might want to talk on this too, but because I know James has been silent, I want James to get a word into it.
Oh no, don't worry. It's more of a. I always feel like I'm like the last line of defense when it comes to talking on things. So it's like if no one starts, I'll just kind of like I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
But like if you want to involve me, down.
What I was gonna say based on what Andrew had said is it is different than having somebody just hit a like and leaving a comment versus conversation. And it makes it even more impactful when you're talking about it from a narrative and writing standpoint, because writers aren't necessarily always seen as like people. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, the company just decided to do this, whatever. But there's there's a real James behind the word.
Yeah, and it is often a I would say crucially under spoken skill where everyone's like, oh, I can write. I can technically physically write down words. Therefore, I must be a writer.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I've been kind of thinking about that, where I feel like writing has one of the lowest barriers of entry.
Yes.
Technically speaking. Because like all you need is a sheet of paper and a pencil, and then you can write something. And oftentimes I think that makes people think it's incredibly easy.
Yeah, right. Because sorry.
Because like you could watch a movie and be like, oh, that was terrible. They should have changed that and that and that, and that would have made a greater movie.
Yeah.
But it's like it's hard to know like how much goes into it until you're on ground zero trying to create something from absolutely nothing. And it's always interesting getting to see that and do that and see how people react to it.
The way I often think of it is like someone can pick up a pen and draw for the first time and go, whoa, wow, it looks terrible, versus write down a paragraph and it's like just looking at that paragraph, you can't tell if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Like
my dad just gave a little anecdote the other day about his old essays when he was in school. And he was like, he always said, yeah, I thought I'd write these A+ masterpieces and get them back and they're like C-. It's like, it's just hard to know.
Right. It's right. It's not like there's not as clear like visual distinction between good and bad. You have to actually like, more meaningfully like look at it and engage with it and think about it. That comes like, and writing for games is like a whole other like skill and ability to it, of like, 'cause it's not like a straightforward linear narrative, and it's something that like people operate at their own at their own pace, so like learning to write things at a pace that where people expect to, someone might see these two lines 10 seconds apart, someone might see them 10 minutes apart, and how do you write for that style of like art?
It's been a James, how would you describe our writing style? Like how's our journey with that?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a tough description. I could at least go into kind of how I went about it.
Right.
For this, with games, obviously there's a game to it, and that, in my opinion, takes precedent above pretty much everything else. Because like you play a game to have gameplay, unless you're playing a visual novel, in which case that's semantics.
Right.
But it was really helpful for me to have the kind of outline of what the player is doing in this section of the game. So they need to find this, they need to do something here, they need to end up here with the boss fight or something. Because then that gives like a framework where you understand the limitations of where you're at, you understand where each cutscene is, about the estimation of time between gameplay between these cutscenes, and then from there you can think about the characters themselves, motivations, how they develop across the course of that short time frame, and then understand where they end up to create some sort of arc for these
Right.
characters to undergo. And so, and then obviously with a game, gameplay takes precedence, as I said. So if something changes, like, oh, I don't like the way we're backtracking through this area, suddenly you have to change the story to account for that now.
Yeah.
So a lot of mixing and matching and trying to make it all make sense within ever changing and shifting parameters.
Right,
So it's a
right.
little confusing, but
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun. It's a puzzle.
Right, because you have this thing like, oh, this makes perfect narrative sense here, and then, oh, this segment where it made narrative sense no longer exists. Like, do you try
Yeah.
do you put it earlier or later? Do you kind of like rework the story so that it works without that at that point? Or like, yeah, there is, especially, working as like a team,
Oh
Yeah.
there's
100%.
there's a much different experience when it's like you're not 100% like, I mean, you're not like surprising each other with things, but you're not 100% aware of what someone is doing at any given time.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I would, and this is me just, I'm keeping to gaslight James, just
Yes.
put him up on the pedestal. But James had
Thank you.
James had one of the hardest jobs when he started because he had to take my pre-existing story that I've been working on by myself for the past like years, and he had to decode, understand my style, understand where the story was supposed to go, understand the characters, do all of that, and then still try to actually write and cut down on a lot of things to bring up the gameplay and just kind of function on his own. So I would, and everybody on the team knows he deserves this, but like James has done such like an incredible job with the narrative to
Mhm.
shape it into where we want audiences to go visually as well as through like the words. There are even specific mechanics that we've built around ideas that James has helped be part of like developing, which is always really cool, which kind of circles back into the whole everybody learns different skills. They learn multiple ideas. So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you guys.
That's it's the best feeling of a team, of hey, working together, because that is not always the end result of indie projects. I'm sure there's a million that we never see because people just like, especially people in so many disciplines, kind of like bouncing off of each other. And sometimes there's like, oh, well, I have to throw away all of my story because you want to change gameplay, or I have to, like, I made all this gameplay. Why do I have to? Why does all my gameplay have to sit in between like mountains of text?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like to be fair, like there's been the great thing about our team
yeah,
is everybody respects and understands each other.
right.
And the most important thing about the team is everybody is against me, against Kwesi.
Right.
because, because it's okay, Kwesi has an idea and we're gonna hear him out and then we're gonna tell him how it's actually gonna work, not because we don't want to do it, but because we need to just make the demo, man.
We
Yes.
want to make the
We want to make the
we
game.
want to actually make a
We
game.
want to make the game. So, like, everybody always is a collaborator, from our artists to even our programmers have input on like how certain mechanics and features. They're not just there to optimize or there to make it work. They're there to understand and engineer ways that could improve the experience. So everybody does have a part to play, and our team is not just, I mean, yes, it's a random group of people that we've kind of all come together, but it's more importantly a team that has become friends and trusts and understands the decisions from each other. So
Right.
that's why we have leads, and those leads communicate with their members in order to bring out the best ideas and move forward. So yeah, it's a team built on trust, communication, understanding, passion, and most importantly, ducks.
Right. And that's the benefit too of having other people like work in different fields and pick up different skills, because if everyone's fully cordoned off into their little zones, it's very easy to be like, oh, you can't just fix the gameplay, just fix it a little, or
Yeah.
I just need you to add this real quick, just I have this idea like, oh, let's look at this piece of art that I made. It just takes 2 seconds to incorporate into the game, right? To make this whole new segment. Or like, oh yeah, I have got 3 new enemy ideas. Just whip up a couple new enemies for me real quick.
Yep. Just a quick thing. Just a
Right.
quick thing.
It's what? Just like 3 enemies. It takes no time at all. You just open up Blender and they just fall right out, I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And see, the funny thing about that specific sentence is all of our enemies and characters are sprite based.
Yes.
So if we ask for one character, here,
minus the Earth Golem.
okay, minus well, we're talking about basic enemies.
Fair.
Yeah. So if you ask for a new enemy, I'm not asking for just whip up a 3D model and animate it. I'm basically asking for like how many,
Everything.
like almost over like 200 animations to
Right.
be done for like one enemy.
Yeah, because we need their idle, we need their walk, we need their attack. If they have a
Yeah.
knockback or not.
Knockback.
Maybe they have a defense,
Exactly.
Maybe
Yep.
they have multiple attacks.
Yep. And it's
It-
all 8
it-
directional.
All 8 directional too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, and that's a thing. It can be hard unless you are really working together. It's a thing. It's easy to forget. Like, oh yes, every little thing just
Yep.
is like actually 600 little things.
It
Mhm.
needs to be taken
And-
into account. And
Right.
she's not here, but shout out to Ellie Bartlett. She is our art director, who
Mhm.
the duck wrangler, who is able to communicate with over what we have 8 artists on the team, I think.
probably.
Yeah, no, we have 8 artists on the team, and she's able to communicate effectively with every single one of them
Yeah,
Yeah.
to get the game
Mhm.
to where it looks like now. So huge shout out, Ellie, if you're
Huge shout
listening.
out.
We love you.
because that itself is an unspoken skill of production, of actually collaborating a bunch of people together. I ran into that once, probably a decade ago or whatever, at a global game jam where a team had like 12 people for some reason, and turns out I could not do any game stuff. I had to become a producer across 2. We had a satellite studio, of course, in a library, and I had to run ideas between the 2, and then nothing ended up actually getting made meaningful.
Oh,
But that's the sometimes the problem. If you don't pay attention and you're not like conscious of team size, sometimes team size itself becomes like a burden.
Yeah.
Like, when you don't have that, like, that good directors to wrangling to properly wrangle those 8 people together. You've got 8 people working on their own separate projects, and then none of them work together. Maybe people are duplicating work, or
Yeah.
like styles don't mesh well enough, and so it's like,
Yeah. And we fell into that trap like early on, like way back when we were first conceptualizing, because we didn't even know the kind of game we wanted to go with. Like at
Right.
one point we were going with the style that Elena had, then we had a different artist, we were going with her style. I think her name, yeah, I think it was Maddie that we were trying to think of that. And then we had Yaira, she was our original artist. So there were like multiple things we were trying to figure out. And it took us a long time to actually solidify the style we wanted and the game we wanted to like create. So I completely get what you're saying, Andrew, in terms of like wrangling them is not easy, especially if nobody like communicates.
yes,
And even with like team building in general, like I feel like, because I've been with the team for quite a while, and I feel like the team we have now is, we've always had great members, always. I think the team we have now though is the most dedicated,
Dedicated, passionate,
dedicated and passionate about it.
yeah,
Um,
and serious about
and
it.
serious about it, yes. And it's, not to say that our former members have not been, but like this is the biggest group of focused individuals that we've had, and it is amazing. And I think our different leads in our different, areas play a huge role in that, because for many times it's been just you, Quessy, just kind of leading everyone.
It's just me being shouting off a mountaintop because I have an idea. I have an idea. And everyone's like, oh crap, we have to start over.
Right.
I remember I
And
remember before we had an art director, it was very hard to keep everyone, including myself, focused.
Yeah.
There was just so many things that we wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
And
The scope of the game grew to the size where we had to get organized more than what
right.
we
There's the infinite strength in the team member that just is really good at saying no.
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Like there's 10 steps that we want to do, but we're excited for 6 and 7, but we have to start at 1.
You're right.
Exactly.
And we have to just keep our heads forward and focused.
Yeah. So for anybody that's listening, that's in a team or working on something, like just start at step 1 and take your time because it will come if you just stay the course and know what you want to build.
Mm-hmm.
Lay the foundation, yeah.
Right, or else you just find yourself rebuilding foundations for like 11 years, and then you never end up with anything.
Wrapping them in duct tape to try to support whatever's coming next.
Right. Until you
it's the duct tape of dreams.
Until you eventually just have a giant unreleased ball of duct tape, and people going, "Oh, I remember that game I saw at a con. Did that game ever come out?" And the answer was no, it never did.
It's very shiny though.
Yeah, no, it's like I enjoyed the various shiny pieces I saw at local events, but I think I played a demo for that once. I mean that is the unfortunate fate, I think, of more games than people think about because they just don't ever see them.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, here's a thing that kind of sits around forever and then never really comes out, either because it's just like there's the fear of like, oh, we need to make the money back for this thing, or like make whatever the proper sort of project is.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get trapped for a long time.
Yeah. I think our biggest fear for this is not letting people see how adorable Astray is.
Right.
That is our motivation. It's like, she's adorable. Just play the game with her, and that's
Do it for her.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't care about the money or failing. We just want people to love our characters.
We want people to love it, enjoy it, and have fun. And have a good time.
Have a good time. You
Yeah.
know?
And the benefits of going to GDEX multiple years and have people come back and see it is like, how I feel, you start to feel accountable to those people. Like, oh, I better actually finish this thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the best feelings that I had at this past GDEX was there was a few people that came and said, I remember this game from like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it looks completely different. And I don't know if you've seen what our old alpha looks like, but it is a vastly different game.
Very different
than what our game looks like now. Like we were going with Zelda rules, up, down, left, right.
Yes, I am.
Down.
You actually said as I am looking at this clip from 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
That is very much like. It's got like it's got a little bit of like the kernel of 8-way like vision, but it is very clearly like top down.
Oh yeah, it's not there anymore. If you're looking up on Steam, Elena.
No, yeah.
No, it's just a new version. But
I'm on Instagram, scrolling through your Instagram page, looking for these old ones.
Oh yeah, we need to clean it up.
I like the ability to see old stuff on there.
Brown Christian, clean up our Instagram. Anyway, the funny thing about that version of the game that you're seeing, like the old one,
Yeah.
that that journey, that was 9 months. That took us 9 months to make
Right.
because there was a point, and I think it was Ellie who finally kind of like stood up and was like, all right, look, we have a lot of great ideas and the story is great, but we just need to make something.
Yeah.
So we just like build just this one thing and get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And for those 9 months, we worked on nothing but just this is the mechanics we want to build. This is the ending. This is how the attacks are going to work. 9 months later, we produced the alpha of Zakumba Straya, and it was one of the most proudest moments that our team has had because we actually created, released, and showcased something. And from that, it allowed us to catapult our way up to make it better and polish it and just allow ourselves to get better and better and make Estrella more appealing by introducing a new character, new mechanics, a whole new environment, polished, VFX. Shout out to Tully. Tully's done an incredible job. Um, but that foundation for what you're seeing, that 9 months, that was our foundation that helped us catapult to where we are now. And I think James and Elena would agree on that.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that is a thing that I think that helps a lot of people go, oh, it's real now. Our game is real now. It's not like a weird amalgamation of art assets and ideas and gameplay concepts. They're sitting around. It's like, no, here's a thing that another person can play from start to finish, and it exists. There's a lot to something existing, even in these early alpha phases.
Yeah, I always feel like it's important to finish stuff,
Yes.
even if it isn't the greatest thing in the world.
No,
Finishing stuff is so important.
Yes, right. No, perfect. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
Yep.
It's like it's you're like, oh, for something's a million perfect projects will never come out. But then there are people out there who are just actually finishing things, and you'll see their stuff all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
And I think a lot of times, like, I'm sure you all run into this in terms of just like living life as creators on the internet, but this kind of like strive. You think about. I think the most cursed example is like the artist Instagram video of like them doing their sketchbook, but it's like also the most perfect drawing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not actually somebody's sketches. That's like their Instagram version of what their sketchbook is.
That's right.
And I think there's that pressure to be that the Instagram version of a sketchbook, when I think people are really drawn to like seeing people inside of things more than seeing perfection inside of something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's very true. Like our I'm thinking of our old sketchbooks that we have. We have like a team's art sketchbook of
Right.
old versions of Estrella. They're somewhere in like my
They're
storage.
buried in the
They're
drive.
they're there in the drive in there. But and it's funny you mentioned sketchbook because one of the features in our game is Estrella's journal. And the journal is a representation not just of like a pause menu because it's when you pause the game it opens up the journal and that's where you
Yes.
go through and sort through your inventory, but it's a representation of Estrella and the vibe that we're trying to give for the game, which is it's through the eyes of a child, through the eyes of a little girl, a kid who's just having fun. So throughout the whole interaction we told our UI artist Ren, shout out to Ren, we said we want random doodles and sketches on Estrella. And Ren, as you've already seen with like the portraits and the character designs of our game, has done an incredible job of like making Estrella just like lifelike and just look so good. But
Yeah.
she took that same energy and did it as a sketches, and we had to consistently tell her, Ren, you gotta be worse than that. Make your
Right.
sketches worse and worse and worse. And then finally she's like, I could just pull out the sketchbook that I did when I was like 6 or 7. And we're just like, yes, let's see that. And then she pulls it out, and it was still amazing. They were like, take that,
She's
but
too
make
good.
it 10
She's too
times
good.
worse.
Right.
And then we were finally able to get the style that we wanted to show the authenticity. And I think that's the word you were looking for. Show the authenticity of the journey of how somebody actually, begins their craft and like all the mistakes that they've done. Because there is beauty in showcasing where you pivoted to where you actually represented like your art.
Right.
And that's what we really tried to do in the game itself as a representation.
Yeah. No. The I have your page ups, your different pages up. I've been scrolling through them during this thing, and the the menus are very good because that is like is a thing of like if you want them to be in a different style than like the art that is inside the game itself because the it is in theory a character drawing a character drawing their own things, not art assets from the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's very good at that, honestly. Like it's
Thank
I
you. Thank you very much.
pass on my compliments to the artist.
Absolutely. All the artists, and here I'm going to shout them out because I know all of them.
Yeah.
Elena, Ellie, Megan, Jamie, Kayla, Ren, Serena. Who am I missing? Rose. Who am I missing? I think that's it.
See,
Tully. Holy crap! I forgot about. Don't Tully. I love you. I did not forget about you. Holy crap! We have 9 artists.
yes. See, that's the trap. It's why I often try not to name things because I know, oh no, I will forget one person.
Forget one person.
Just because
That's
I'm
always my biggest concern.
right of like being put
Who
on
am
the
I gonna
spot.
miss?
Being put on the spot, and not forgetting someone because you think less of them, but just because you were put on the spot and you had to remember 9 names off the top of your head,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're like,
With
did
no
it.
frame of
All
reference.
of it.
but you
I
did
got
it.
all of it.
You got them. You nailed them all. That is yes,
Mama duck, know her duck, know his
Caleb?
ducks.
yes,
I
that
said
is.
Kate.
Halo.
Yeah.
See,
God, there's so many people.
It's all you don't have to worry about remembering everybody,
That's
Elena.
Ques's job.
That's my job.
Yeah.
I make sure my little duckies are all accounted for.
no, that's a problem I've run into where I have to remember 600 things.
Oh, jeez.
And it's like a whole other chore on top of that. But you mentioned you're drawing inspiration from Persona 3 earlier as being, or not even if not directly, as like something that wants me to make games. What are some group touchstones like or individual touchstones of not even games necessarily, but of like inspirational works that you might find within Estrella for everyone?
Oh,
Wow.
that's a good question. No one's ever asked us this question.
Yeah.
That's a deep question.
Well, this is
James.
this is the interview portion of it.
Yeah.
Oh.
James, you go first.
Oh wow.
This is
Oh, great.
directing. This is me directing.
So it worked. Let's see. So we're talking specifically inspirations for Zagumba Estrella.
Yeah, or just things that sometimes people have like experiences or pieces of art that exist in their brains and they can't not either express those in their different works or like sometimes they just kind of bleed through just because you think it's something you think about a lot.
Okay. Oh, I'm trying to. Oh, hold on a second. Elena, you go first.
I'm the one to go first.
All right. You have something?
No.
Oh.
I just need to do a little research real
All right.
quick.
I will as their fearless leader, I will go first and allow them to come up with stuff. But
Yes.
I did mention, like Persona was a huge influence. Specifically, it mainly had to do with the character portraits and designs because I love the way they're represented. And like their menus, I think Persona menus are amazing. So that was one thing I really wanted to try to encapsulate. But in the overall design of the game, there's a handful of games that have really influenced where Zakumba was headed in terms of like gameplay and even narrative. The biggest one I think where it really started was Lunar Silver Star Story. That was like a 1996 PS1 game.
Yes, I have.
That came.
In this room somewhere, I have that Working Designs box set for that.
Oh my God! Do you want to sell it? Because I'm trying to been buying that for a
No,
while.
no, I got that. I did the smart thing where when I was in high school, I used my disposable income to buy a lot of video games off of eBay.
Nice.
So I got
Nice.
I got like that JoJo fighting game for like $20 or whatever,
Oh,
Nice.
and like Persona 1 and 2. Like I think the literally
Oh,
the only game I paid above like a retail of $50 for was like Earthbound. Everything else was under $50.
oh man,
Nice.
I want to go back in time and live in your time.
Yeah,
again.
there is no other way to get like cheap versions of like the PS1 Personas or
Oh
like,
no, nope.
Nope.
That stuff is like
Mm-mm.
$800 to $1,000
yeah,
starting.
yeah. And that's all stuff that's like complete inbox manuals and everything
That's right.
pristine.
Yeah.
What is my this is my tri-monthly Andrew's check-in of what are his most expensive video games
Oh boy,
that he
I bet it's still Persona.
I think it was Persona for a long time, so it may still be Persona. There are other
Wait,
things.
do you have a spreadsheet you keep?
I signed up for I added everything to price charting at some point.
Oh,
Price charting,
interesting.
that kind of like aggregate sort of website for that sort of thing.
Nice. Okay, so now I'm curious what your most expensive
Yes.
game is.
Oh, it's like all. It turns out it's pretty much all the ones I named. Persona 1, Persona 2, Earthbound,
Done.
JoJo's Bizarre
Easy.
Adventure.
Yep, Persona 1 is so expensive right now.
It's like I have a complete in box. It's about $400
Damn, that's right.
to get this Persona Revelations.
Whew. Yeah, that one is.
Yeah.
I
Then we
was so
got
sad when I saw some of my games, but
Path of Radiance, Chibi Robo,
Ooh.
Silent Hill 3. Weirdly enough,
Silent Hill. Oh yeah, Silent Hill 3 is up there for sure.
the weirdest one is honestly Samurai Western. which is-
Samurai Western.
I bought as a joke for like $7, and now it's worth like $200.
Hey, there we go. Love it.
And there is Lunar. Oh, sorry, you're right. Actually, you're wrong. I was wrong. I have Lunar 2.
Yeah, look, that one is actually worth more than Lunar 1.
But
Um,
yeah,
and at one point, I had both of them. I owned them, and I loved it. And then I sadly had to give it.
right. That is.
All right.
I've got a ripcord of video games if I ever need. Those are the investments I made as a child that I benefit from.
There- Listen, we will definitely keep a relationship up so that when you are ready to let them go and need some money, I should be the first person you call.
Yes, it's like I
Specifically for Persona and Lunar, those ones.
I need to unload these. I need to unload this copy of Rival Schools.
Oh yeah, hey, yeah. Let's barter. We'll
Right.
set up.
Once Quessy's gonna be in your DMs being like, "Hey man,
Hey man, I heard you have those Breath of Fires. Hook me up with some.
Oh, the Breath of Fires. Oh my God.
I got.
Golden Sun too. Let's go.
I got. We're not gonna get too bogged down, and if people have not, I've said it, probably talked about it a lot of times on the show, but if people have not looked at like, I highly recommend. I mean, just playing through them, but like just looking at like Breath of Fire 4, it's like
Oh, I have that emulated. I'm currently playing that
It is,
emulated
like,
on my computer.
incredible.
It's so good. It honestly, the question you would ask on the games that have influenced, that was part of the games that I was going to mention. Breath
Yeah.
of Fire 4, their mechanic, specifically with, and it's so dumb,
Yeah.
but it's like it made such an impact for me. Rotating the camera
Oh yes.
during exploration when you can just get a new perspective and you couldn't even move. is something that I want to explore. It's not something we're going to do, but I want to explore that because I think it's such a unique way with traversing, especially through an RPG, for a game like ours.
Yeah, for me, it is the fact that your whole parties exist in every battle is.
Oh,
I think it's such a clever way of like having high stakes but avoiding the kind of a character died and now I fall behind forever.
yep.
Of like being able to build them back up in the back row and that sort of thing.
Yep.
It is also like truly one of the most incredible looking games. Like
it's so good looking.
Like ever made.
Animation on point. Sprite work is amazing. A protagonist that never talks but still is badass just by their actions.
Yes,
it's awesome.
There's a really funny thing. I'm sorry to derailing this to talk much about like Breath of Fire.
No, absolutely. We're talking about all my favorite video games. Please keep talking.
So in Breath of Fire 3, your protagonist Ryu slowly grows up, and when he is just like when he's with his friends and the older cool guy, like his basic attack animation is he kind of like ducks his head and like rapidly jabs at his sword like nervously.
Yeah.
But then when you separate from the party, it's just him and like Nina, who is at that point like his same age. He starts like swinging his sword like confidently, like he's got to be cool and brave. And
those little details.
Yeah, it's like an unspoken part of narrative, but it's like, oh yeah, Capcom made a lot of fighting games. And those things are all like a story through animation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And character through animation. But yes, the part of like I spent a lot of time talking about Breath of Fire to give other people time to
come up with their stuff. I know you. Hey, Andrew, you and I are on the same page. So I'm gonna wrap up my stuff real quick, and then we're gonna swing it back to James. But Lunar Silver Star story definitely helped with the fantasy element, and then from the gameplay element, I definitely would say Bastion.
Okay. Yes.
Transistor and Hades. Those three games, from a gameplay standpoint, have heavily influenced our combat, our exploration, how the camera is perceived. So Supergiant Games, thank you for being amazing developers. Inspired a new wave of them.
Having not played it, and just looking at these screenshots, even I'm like, I feel like that probably plays like Bastion.
Yeah, exactly.
It comes through well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think if you're on the website on the projects page, if you scroll down to where it says the game's design, it actually has the GIFs that show the game in action, so you can kind of see how we influenced a lot of that combat stuff.
Yes, I had not clicked on that. I clicked on a lot of different tabs, but not that one in particular.
Oh no, you're fine. The website is a mess, and I need to clean it up. But
no. Hey, the important thing is you've got a website, which I think a lot of people neglect to do. I was looking at like the MagFest Indie Showcase, and a lot of people like just had a social media page or just had like a Steam page, and having your own website goes, I hope at least goes a long way, because it's like, oh no, here's a space that is just my thing.
Yep.
People cannot visit your Steam page and then get distracted and click off to another game.
That's right. Yep. Definitely does help.
They just have your game.
Forced interaction.
Yes.
Forced interaction. Yep. All right. I think that's it for me. James, you're up. Can't hide anymore.
Yeah, I don't need to hide anymore. So I was trying to think of specific inspirations for Zakumba Estrella specifically, and I realized that's a little difficult.
Right.
Just from the standpoint of like, it's weird working on a project that technically isn't your child, like that you created or that you drove up from nothing. Because like various projects that I've worked on, I could by myself, I'm like, oh yeah, this was an inspiration, this was an inspiration. But for me, it's a little hard to do that, especially writing wise, because the reason I was stalling very poorly was because I was trying to run through the character sheets Quessy and I created. And on those sheets, we have references to specific characters across different stories and mediums and whatever that kind of influence our understanding of the character. So, like, we have the character sheet for Estrella, which lists out everything about her, blah, blah, blah. And we also have these references and why they work for Estrella and why they influence our perspective for Estrella. And a lot of these are kind of like scattered across a bunch of different games. So I'm not going to really talk about these very much,
Right.
but I will talk about the that was just a long roundabout way of saying I'm going to talk about the stuff that influenced me writing wise and creation wise, I guess. And one of the biggest ones for me was the video game Nier Automata.
Okay.
Has anyone here played it?
I have
Yep.
I
not.
haven't played it.
Nier Automata.
I've watched people play it, but I've
Yeah.
never played it.
My
I've
game
played
is
a lot
really
of. I've played a lot of OG Nier.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's another big one.
It's something
But-
I just one of those things. I just haven't gotten around to it.
No, that's fair. It's my favorite game ever.
Yes.
Um,
And that was
But-
the part of like my like, oh well, a lot of people are playing Nier Automata. Let me get around to it later. You know, when I often like to just sort of get things. I play things at my own pace a lot of times.
yeah, no, that's fair. But this doesn't influence writing an incredible
Yeah.
amount when working on like a huge project with a big team, because Nier Automata to me is a game that makes the use of the fact that it is a video game to its fullest potential, to dive directly into its main theme of like the purpose of life and stuff like that. It uses the fact that you are a player playing a video game to reinforce that. And I don't want to go into it too much, obviously.
Right.
But it's such a beautiful game to me because it hit me right at the perfect point in my life of trying to understand myself and the world around me. And it's just a constant reminder to remember, like, video games are a new concept in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like, they don't have the years upon years of history that books or movies do. So there's a lot of things that could be done in video games to innovate, to create unique, grand experiences that some people might not have even thought of yet or had the opportunity to make. And so thinking about games like that, like, what can you do with this story-wise? How can you use the fact that this is a video game to increase the emotional impact of the things that happen? So thinking about games like that has helped me, in a way, make sense of everything writing for video game wise, I guess. If
Right.
that makes any sense.
No,
so
yeah,
far.
no, because it is, and games, also have like a more unique problem of extreme recency bias.
Yes.
Of like there is like the preservation of like history in games is nowhere near it the way it is in like pretty much every other medium, where someone can be like, oh yeah, the idea of retro itself like doesn't exist the same way in a lot of other mediums
Oh yeah.
as strongly as it does in games. I think like if you go back to like maybe big band stuff, I feel like maybe that's the idea of like retro music, if you had to say that, or when people think of old timey stuff you hear on a Fallout radio.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even that, I think, because of things like that, eventually sort of fades away. And maybe you have a friend that's like, oh, I just listen to big band all the time.
So retro.
Right. But it's not like we don't have like retro, retro culture in the same way as games has it. And part of that is obviously like accessibility. How Lunar is $400.
Yeah.
or an emulator away, but it's not the same like convenient. I mean, I think I saw when you were talking about it that there is a Lunar remaster coming out.
Whoa, don't tease me. Wait, what? Don't tease me.
No, it had like a page and everything. Yeah, Lunar remastered.
Oh Oh, Andrew, you've made my weekend. Oh my God, this looks incredible. What? How have I not heard about? I'm sorry. I'm gonna shut up.
No,
now. You
I
keep
didn't hear about
talking.
this either, and I'm usually kind of like spring 2025, so relatively
Oh my
soon.
God. Oh, can I pre-order this? Hold up, bro.
Because
Okay.
Ooh, it'll be on the Switch.
It will be on the Switch. Oh,
I'm yeah, it's
Add
Silver
it-
Story and Eternal Blue, and that's a
Oh my
series I
God.
haven't played through, and I'm curious about curious to play through them.
I feel like I have to now.
No, James, it's part of your requirement to stay in the company or else you're fired.
Oh wow.
There is, and I'm curious. And the nice thing is, it doesn't look like they're. Listen, I think what's it called? That game, like that video game, that RPG with all those people in it.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah,
one
yeah.
That narrows it. That narrows it down.
they made two of them.
Yep.
I keep on calling it Etrian Odyssey, but it's not Etrian Odyssey. Octopath Traveler.
Oh.
Yeah,
Traveler.
I think
Okay.
Octopath Traveler looks fine, but I think also that it should not be like the default style for like 2D games. Of
Yeah.
like they should with those huge bloom effects, and it looks like this Lunar is not doing that, which I kind of like.
It looks like it's very much so keeping true to the original, just adapting it.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
it looks like a true rematch. It looks like what they did for Lunar Silver Star Harmony when it came out on the PSP.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably like taken apart from that. But
Yeah.
it's always interesting. There is I have it sitting around that I have not gotten to yet, the Star Ocean remaster. But there's something neat about that is like you can change the portraits, so you can see basically like 3 generations of like anime style across the different character portraits, and how like, oh, here's what it was predominantly upon release. Here's what it was, in like the PSP era, and here it is modern day, like what that style is. But we're not going to get too bogged down on staring at Lunar things forever, because we still have one more person.
I have already wishlisted the game. Thank you very much.
Oh, no
I really
problem.
hope I have
Glad to provide a
version.
service.
You have
Actually-
provided the best service for the year for me.
And actually, I do not mean to hijack the next
Yeah.
person. But I was going to go through one more.
Yes, go ahead.
Writing inspiration for me. I apologize.
No,
Should have
go
made
ahead.
that clear. I'll keep this one more brief. The Ace Attorney series.
Yes.
That's probably the biggest influence in writing dialogue. I love that series so much. It's so funny. It wears its heart so far up its sleeve, or so far on its sleeve.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, excellent combination of wit, humor, and heart, I guess. I always try to keep that in mind.
Yeah. No, and it's persevered for a while,
Yes.
because of having like a very distinct sort of style. I'm sorry, I got distracted looking at Lunar and like
Yep.
just
Me
like
too.
and company legacies now of like who's Gung Ho? Gung Ho acquired. I forgot Gung Ho acquired Grasshopper, and Gung Ho sold Acquire to Katakawa. So much stuff going on.
Sony acquired or is a shareholder now of Katakawa.
Yes, that is. There was talk about nobody needs to. Companies need to not acquire each other. I think it's fine if Katakawa is its own thing, and Sony is its own thing. Probably better.
It always ends up making me a little more confused. Like the more like companies get morphed into one another,
Right.
I just start to get a little lost.
Right, and it kind of like also, it consolidates probably the number of things that they end up making, and it's probably more beneficial if people are independent, and are able to like just make their own thing. I forgot Acquire made Octopath, or co-made Octopath. Acquire is a weird company. They made a lot of different stuff. I highly recommend trying out Way of the Samurai for people It's a weird thing.
Oh, and there's Samurai Western.
They also made that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Right. It's right there in front of my face. Yes. Yeah.
Dang.
Acquire. A lot of people like, try to play What Did I Do to Deserve This, My Lord, and be like, I don't understand this fully, but there's something going on there that I don't understand. But anyway, this is why we need just like movies, games just constantly re-released, like easily accessible re-releases constantly. They don't require like subscription services or like have to be locked to a certain platform. It's still very weird that we have like 3 consoles and a PC. Very odd.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can't wait until I was talking to my friend about this. I think our generation, millennials and a little older, we're going to be the generation where we're going to ask to be put in retirement homes so we can catch up on the backlog.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, hey, yeah, great. Don't visit me anymore. I just want to play video games. Bye.
Bye, leave me alone.
Leave me
Right.
alone.
You gotta worry about food.
Yep,
You get food provided.
exactly.
You got a house. It's like might as well.
Might as well.
Might as well.
I'm excited. I'm ready for retirement.
And then what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word for when to subsidize all these costs? There it is. To subsidize all these costs, of course, we all have cameras and ring lights in our room, and we'll all be streaming forever.
Old people streaming. It's a whole genre of us just streaming, playing games.
I follow. There's quite a few old people streamers out there now.
Oh yeah,
And they're
absolutely,
great. They're
absolutely.
great.
And they just say the wildest thing. They don't care.
They
They're
don't.
like, I don't.
There's a grandma who's playing Skyrim.
Oh yeah, I heard about
So-
that. It's great. Yeah.
No, I.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like we've hijacked the conversation to the
Yes.
different.
Oh no, don't worry. I'm going to hold Elena to this question.
Oh, it's fine.
But-
It's fine. Oh.
but when I was at that recent BFIG, I had someone come up to me, someone who was probably like late high school, college age, and they were like asking me like, to which Indiepocalypse they would buy, and they were like, I'm looking to get a game for my dad. What is my dad like? What do you think my dad would like? And it's like the realization, and like the good realization, that like games are not kind of like locked to age groups. Like I feel like even in that millennial age period, that they were like kids things,
Mm-hmm.
Even at the highest M rating, it's still like, oh yeah, I guess kids are going to play Grand Theft Auto or whatever, because video games are for kids and teens.
Oh yeah.
But now it's just like, oh no, it's just another medium that like everybody plays, and there will be, there are, and like eventually there's going to be a more deeper awareness of like dad games,
Dad games.
of like, oh yeah, these are some real dad games that your dad loves to play.
That's right.
Oh, my dad games are Call of Duty and Halo.
Right.
Oh, and Modern Warfare. Those are dad games to me.
Really?
Yeah. Right. In the same way that's like, oh yeah, my dad just loves like war movies or whatever. No, my dad just plays Call of Duty. He plays his Call of Duty every year, and then he plays the next one. But
I
Yeah.
would be the dad that says, "Oh, my dad, he plays Persona."
yes,
I don't
right.
know. That's his dad game.
Yeah, eventually you can be the theoretical cool dad who has the cool taste in games.
That's right.
Not the strict conceptual platonic idea of a dad, not a strictly male dad, but the general idea, the concept, the rough concept of a dad.
That's right.
Dad has a concept.
Right.
Broken down to its essentials.
Yes. Dad is a type, not restricted by our heady our antiquated ideas of gender. Dad exists beyond that. The kind of person who can fall asleep in a chair, sitting up. I feel like
yeah.
is essential dad energy. But dads aside, unless dads are the answer to this question, Elena,
Oh,
feet to the
That's
fire.
hard.
I can assure you, Dad is not the answer to my is not my answer. But um, so Questy kind of already went over like what our inspirations for like the game Zakumba Estrella are. You know, obviously Hades Bastion. Um, Also, Lunar was honestly a really big influence for him as well. When I first got on the team, he focused more on those games and the older Final Fantasies as inspo. But of course, as we've changed direction, changed art style, it's leaned
Yeah.
more towards like Hades and stuff. Um, for and of course, you know, West African culture being a huge inspiration for the game as well. Um, for myself, though, I it's always so hard. See, I went to art school, so I've never been able to answer this question.
Right.
But the kind of like genres of things that I like, I'm like huge into like post-apocalyptic, like science fiction kind of stuff. Like I love all that. A lot of fantasy stuff as well. Um when it comes to like games specifically that kind of inspired me, um we've mentioned like a lot of retro games. I'm like huge into collecting consoles and games themselves. Um, so a lot of that has like kind of like influenced my love for like pixel art specifically. I
Yeah.
really enjoy making it. I don't know, like something about like that art form, like I understand it a little more than like drawing with a pencil and a paper. Um,
Yeah, and it is like it's an interesting to see how like
mhm.
pixel gets sort of broadly reinterpreted in like modern culture when
Yeah.
and like
Mhm.
how like there's like a sort of trend towards the couple pixel
Mhm.
styles, so to speak. Uh, and that
Yeah. Mhm.
and how much like a lot of modern pixel art doesn't look like old pixel art did.
Yes, especially of course when you look at things on modern day screens versus CRTs, you know,
Right.
like there plenty of that stuff. But like when and even and that's like the fun thing about it is like when I talk about like pixel like games, like sprite art games, it's
Yeah.
not even just like the 8-bit stuff. Like I'm also thinking of like Sega Genesis games. Like
Yes.
me and one of my friends, we have been trying very hard to be able to beat like Rocket Knight Adventures. That's just like one game that has fantastic bright art. Oh my God,
Yes.
it looks great. Um, that one game that like specific that changed my brain chemistry was definitely Off, which is
Okay.
also getting a remaster.
Yes. English translation based on a friend of the show, Quinn K. Did the
Oh my God.
Oh,
did the
Okay.
of an
Dang.
outcry and Blank Sword. Keep an eye on Blank Sword. They're working on it right
Oh my
now. But
God. Oh, that's exciting.
yes, I believe it's either this was a thing I saw in Blue Sky. I forget that if it's fully or like heavily. I think like their original English translation from way back in the day, probably the one you know,
That's
uh,
the
is like the basis of that new fan gamer. Fan gamer's putting it out, right? I think.
I think.
Is the basis for that, the modern English translation of that. But yes, anyway,
Yeah.
that
I
is, you're
just
right.
it was just such a huge game for me. Like it was just so unique. I'd never played anything like that up until this point. And
Right.
up until that point, I played it, God, 8 years ago. Oh, Lord.
Yes. Well,
But
I mean, the game comes from 2008.
yeah, it's so old, but it is so fun and it is so unique. The music, the story. Like, I still don't know what it's about. I don't know. You're a baseball guy.
Yeah. And I
You're
think
running.
that's,
It's about there's a baby.
yes, it's something
Yeah.
I've been thinking about a lot
Mm,
lately.
mhm.
Let me see if it's It's not even on this list. My God. So I've been thinking about GQ put out like their top 100, like one of those aggregate style polls, a few years ago of like, here's a bunch of we polled a bunch of critics and developers and asked them for their games, and here's the top 100 games. And it's like such a like a perfect encapsulation of recency bias that you could ever make in a game, in a list. In my
It's
sorry, go ahead.
No, you keep going.
I was gonna say, my main obsession is the fact that Off made me think of this because I would not, Off almost certainly in some parts inspired by this game. But within those 100 games, would you believe that they do not include the game Yume Nikki?
No way.
Which is like, which when you think about it, is like, no, that's just one of the most influential video games that anyone has ever made. But it just like doesn't exist in that culture the same way.
And it's so crazy because Yume Nikki is also extremely accessible. It's free, first of all. I think the base game is already in English. Well, it's a Japanese developer, but you can play it. And it's like it's also another one of those RPG Maker games that like made it. Oh yeah. Like to the moon and all that. I think honestly RPG Maker influenced us more than we think.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Our first way
first build.
First
before
build.
I got on.
Yeah, we had an RPG Maker game that Nick created just in maybe like a week. I think he just made it as a concept, and it definitely helped set ideas forward.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
But no, Yume Nikki. I was just gonna say Yume Nikki RPG Maker games in total. Huge inspo for the game and honestly for like myself as well.
Yeah, it is like it is very strange to see. Like, I wonder if like in 5 or 10 years or something, when like we're going to see like a cultural shift in terms of like how games are viewed, of like as this generation has clearly brought up on like not just whatever the most expensive and best-selling game that came out this year was, but people who are like, yeah, no, I know all about that. I know, the regular game jams based around LSD Dream Emulator,
Oh yeah.
People who are real Lunar Silver Story freaks, just like, oh yeah, no, these are, as everyone starts to have like their own different point of references.
We're all gonna be like snobs at one point. It's like the people who drink like wine. They're like, oh, this has a rich aroma. For games would be like, oh, this has such a complex story with deep mechanics, and you just don't understand the culture. I can't wait to be that.
I've been saying for years that I think we honestly need more of that in games, like of that kind of like cultural snobbery, and of like, this isn't for everyone. Well, of course it isn't for everyone. It's like, imagine every piece of art that had to be for everyone,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly. There was one game that I was actually like just thinking about just now. And I feel like it really you ever play Never Alone?
I don't think so.
That was I feel that was a very impactful game because it was a game made by like indigenous Alaskans.
Yes.
And telling stories from their mythos. And I feel like that's really like I feel like that game maybe set the groundwork for more and more groups like I guess ourselves to like really come out and like tell stories from these cultures you don't see a lot of representation from.
Right.
But yeah, no. Highly recommend Never Alone. Beautiful side scroller game.
Yes, and I think it is one of those like like free like game staples, like your epics, or like like it's one of those. I feel like I've got that on probably 3 different platforms through Epic
yeah.
or something like that. So chances are you probably have it somewhere out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's on sale right now for
Yes.
$3 Steam, so go buy
Oh, yeah.
it if you don't have it already. Um, but I also wanted to like shout out like at least one more game
Yeah.
that definitely has inspired me. Have you heard of Cosmic Osmo?
I don't.
Oh, that it is such a pull. It is a
Oh,
it's awesome. Yeah. So when it first came out, it was for one of the old Macs. It was a
yes.
Mac game. And the thing about Cosmic Osmo is it's one of those point and click kind of like adventure puzzle games. Like
Yeah.
think of I think Samurott? Not Sam. That's a Pokemon.
Sam and Max?
Oh, huh?
Samarost.
Samorost.
Yes.
Yes, games kind of like that. The thing about Cosmic Osmo is it does an extremely great job of keeping you immersed in the game,
Yeah.
keeping you in that magic circle of immersion without actually giving you like a story or like an objective. This is truly a game that you just mess around in.
Yeah, it
You
is.
go things.
It's an early Cyan Worlds game, which I did not realize.
Yes.
The people who would,
Yes.
who would make Myst, most famously.
Ah.
It is. That's on sale too right now.
Yes.
So
I
people
recently played Myst, a lot of Myst for the first time on like
Mhm.
was it like I played like the 3DO version or something of Myst. Let's not get into
Oh.
how I play games through retro achievements, but I do remember buying Riven when I was young because I'm like it has like 7 discs.
God,
Gotta have them
God,
all.
TPT
Yeah.
to that time.
It was like this. It has so many discs. My God.
So many discs.
So
Yes.
many, so many.
And that was entirely the reason I asked someone to buy Myst for me as a child because it had a lot of discs.
A lot of discs, a lot of
discs.
gameplay, a
Or
lot of
not Myst,
hours.
Riven. Sorry,
Oh, yes.
Riven, the
yes.
sequel to Myst, of course.
And then, mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to do the one last
Yes.
thing I answer of things that inspire me. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Quessy. It's you.
What? Oh,
I mean,
damn. Oh, God. Oh, God. What? Wait.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I like for this game especially, like, if it was with any other group, I don't think I would like. I think there's a chance, I wouldn't still be with it. But like, you built such a great like. We got a little community in our little team, and it's very. I don't know. It's neat. It's inspirational, and like your drive drives us all, and
Oh,
it's really cool.
I
It
appreciate it.
does.
I was not expecting that. This was
I
not.
wrote it bad.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Smile.
Holy crap. Well, I appreciate it. I'm learning how to take more compliments because I
You
don't like
should.
compliments most
Oh,
of the time.
You're in good company for that. I refuse compliments if given.
Yeah, that's
I'm like,
right.
I'm like, what do I
But,
need
I
those
mean, no,
for?
I appreciate it. I am taking a compliment and thank you. Honestly, I would flip the compliment back to you and everybody
Aw.
else because it's specifically you guys are welcome at all times to leave this crazy train, and yet you are still dedicated and want to see Australia come in. Everybody has a stake
Mm-hmm.
with this project, and I think the beauty about this, Andrew, is that
Yes.
nobody has a stake from a monetary standpoint.
Right.
It's a emotional and creative stake because everybody has touched the game in some way and the game has influenced them in some way. So thank you, Elena.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad everybody
And
sees the work that we've done, and I do a little bit of work, just a little bit. Everybody else does the rest of it. I sincerely do believe that.
no, and it's absolutely the truth. Like I remember like there have been like times where I'm going through a lot in life, you know? Like I'm someone who I have to stay busy or else I go insane.
Right.
But then I put so much on my plate. And then like I've had people say, "You're so busy, why don't you like drop this Afro Duck thing?" And I'm like, "No, absolutely not. That's never been an option
Right.
for me." Like, no.
It
Like
becomes
I
a
want
constant.
I want to see the game made.
Yeah.
I want to see our girls out there having fun, building things.
That's right.
Yeah, you get
Beating
like.
up boys.
Sorry, I got mildly distracted. But anyway, I will.
You're good. No.
Because I'm like,
Go.
wait a minute. I was looking at. I had on my other page. I have my retro achievements up, and I was like, wait a minute. Did contributor of Indiepocalypse work on retro anyway? Make these retro because I'm like, how often will that same name come up? I'll have to check with them and ask them. But yeah, I have a couple. Speaking of questions, I have as we're getting towards the end of the show. Usually this would be the end of the segment questions, but these are now end of the show questions. Oh, look at this. So I'm looking at people who followed me. I as someone who is primarily almost exclusively followed by artists. Whenever someone even like so much as likes something I make, I often will see who it is because I'm like, they're probably an artist. What are they up to? So I'm looking at them, but I have two questions for the whole crew. And these are the first one, not optional. First one must be answered. Second one, no answer is an acceptable answer. But for the first one, what's your favorite type of rock?
Are you talking about
Can I-
music, like rock music genre, or like element?
Up to interpretation.
Oh, up to and
Up to interpret.
so it's
Yeah.
funny you ask. 'Cause I'm a jeweler, so I'm like I got a lot of rock
Yes.
opinions. But okay, music-wise, I'm a huge like anything that you would consider goth music
Okay.
is kind of my jam. Look, Sisters of Mercy, you know, The Cure, what is it? Strawberry Switchblade, you know. I'll shout them all out.
I feel like
But
goth
then
is making a
like,
comeback.
when it comes to minerals, like
Yes.
a rock, honestly, you know what? I'm a huge fan of tanzanite. Those are my that's my favorite gemstone. It's just got such a nice purple color. And it's not, it's like in the way that you even get that purple, because when you mine it, it's brown. It's just a brown rock, but you heat treat it to get that purple. And it's just such a nice lavender and it's so beautiful. And it's like at a 8 on the Mohs hardness scale. So eat it, you can eat it. No,
Okay.
don't eat it.
Well, Ken.
You at the end of the day, you could eat a rock.
Yes.
Like no one's stopping you.
Besides me,
Children, Elena is not saying to eat rocks. If any
Besides
children are
me,
listening,
right.
do not eat rocks.
Don't eat rocks.
but you
Go
could.
eat a rock.
But one could potentially eat a rock.
If you do, it's okay.
But
Don't.
If you do, it's one of the better options.
If you do, you might have pica, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll deal with that later.
Right. Well, I won't deal with it. You'll deal with it. Rock eater. Not my problem.
Oh,
But yes, James and Quessy, we have important answers from you about rocks. I need to know.
I'm gonna let James go first.
Of
'Cause
course.
I'm-
I am a big fan of the Rosetta Stone.
Oh,
ooh.
an important
Because
rock.
yes, a very important rock in the development of our cultures.
I wish I went that direction now, because now I'm going to say the Totem Hammurabi. But or there's that one slab where it like have you heard of it? There's a slab that just is this one guy where it also documents the first human name, where it's just they're complaining about some guy because
Yes.
he gave him the wrong amount of like coal or something.
Right.
Think of that.
Our earliest recorded history of customer complaints.
Yeah, literally. Oh god, the Kushim tablet or something. It's great. But no, that's such a good answer.
I know you started talking about like this very deep look into actual geology and rocks. I'm like, oh man, I was gonna say shale. I can't look like a fool in front of everyone here.
No, you should stick with shale. It's Ohio's state rock, I think. Maybe. Let me
That
look that
sounds
up.
correct, I
Yes, it
think.
is.
I don't know. I like me some shale. I don't know. I like the way it feels
Oh,
in
I'm
Uh,
my
sorry.
hands.
I lied. It's Flint.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I lied.
interesting. Yeah, it's okay.
it is. For the
Forgive
record,
me.
is the complaint tablet to Ia Nasir, complaining about being sold substandard copper.
Ooh.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Oh, it's
Oh,
a true like classic in that it's very old and it's just a complaint. It's like a nice piece of humanity, of right. People are just like we even 4,000 years ago we're still human beings.
we still got to complain about.
Yeah, we
It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
yeah. Like even 4,000 years ago, we weren't. Those people are not all just like simple austere people who played out their melodramas like you might see in plays or television. They still had 24-hour lives, and plenty of them still had luxury and time to complain about things.
Yeah,
But
that's wild.
yes, it's a neat little piece of history.
I know that to go off on a very small tangent
Yeah.
here. This kind of reminds me of the hundreds of recorded instances in history where you can see the older generations blame the younger generations
Yeah.
for everything that's going wrong. And like it's crazy because it happens every single time. Every
Right.
single time there's like, oh, the younger generation doesn't know this, and then they're like, oh, I'll never become that. And then they get to the future, it's like, oh, the younger generation. It's such a interesting
Right.
cycle to
Like
see it always happen
even being
across
fully
thousands and thousands of
right
years of history.
with our full awareness of history, we still repeat it.
Exactly. It's always fun.
Yeah, and it's you see like, oh, look at this dumb humor the kids like. It's like, hey, where were you when you were a kid?
Exactly. It's like, what were you laughing at?
Yeah, you had your own skibbity toilet, and don't pretend you didn't.
Oh
You,
god.
you took
Oh,
poops.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Always centered around toilets.
Exactly. It's a universal constant.
That's
The rest-
the other cultural thing of like in the concept of dad games is like, oh, let me tell you, skibbity toilet. Let me tell you about YouTube poops and these Hotel Martyr YouTube poops. That was
Let me
culture.
regale you. That was real humor.
But also, it's like, isn't that also just like Gary's Mod stuff still, or like a Source Filmmaker? Like it's still like the same stuff like they've been using for generations. It's the thing that crosses generations is Source Filmmaker.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is like I feel like a lot of 3D doesn't age well,
Yeah,
except anything made in Source.
right.
yeah.
Timeless stuff. It's like just like stylistic enough to where it's gonna be they're still gonna be using it to make YouTube poops by the time we're all dead and have
Yes,
been dead for 20 years.
right. And it's the and because a lot of it is like this kind of ironic or comedic kind of or surreal thing. It works well. They're like, oh, it doesn't need to look perfect because it's supposed to look a little weird. And the low polyness helps it a lot.
It does. It makes it timeless in a weird way.
Yeah. But we have one person yet to answer the crucial rock question.
I see the whole time you guys been talking, I've been doing a bunch of research.
Yes.
And like, I never even like truly thought about it, but I will say it won't be a rock specifically, but a rock monument. So there is a monument in Ghana. So I was born in Ghana. I moved here when I was 5. That's why you don't hear the accent from me.
Right.
But this game has really it birthed from the idea of I want to make a game that has some representation with my culture, which is why there's a lot of Ghanaian influences with like our art and everything else. But in Ghana, there's a monument, and it is called the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park Monument. It is in Accra, in Ghana, and it is a monument that is dedicated to one of the most influential leaders in Ghana. And he helped build the independence of Ghana, like in 1958. His name was Kwame Nkrumah. So I don't know what it's made out of, but that
Yes.
specific monument, if you Google it,
I think I'm looking. It's like the curve structure, right?
yeah, the curve structure. Yep. And that
Yeah.
monument is something that is like a representation of that we want to put in the game as well. But that symbolizes kind of the independence that I see our studio taking, where we specifically are uh, trying to create something out of nothing, show our independence, but
Yeah.
also be a pillar for other studios or other people that want to be able to like build things on their own. So that is my rock answer at the moment.
Yes, that's a very hey, that's a very good. We've got a lot of non-standard rock answers. A lot of proper noun rocks. I think this is the first time we've had proper noun rock answers on the show.
Is this a standard question out of
It is.
curiosity?
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
For a long time, there were 2 questions that somebody asked. This was asked by a friend of the show. Would always ask, "Hey," they would get in the chat, or sometimes in the forum left beforehand. They would say, "Hey, what's your favorite type of rock?" And then I would answer, "Hey, this," and people would ask, and they would answer. And the second follow-up question, which like I said, is not actually a follow-up question that I even though I constantly call it that. It is optional, of course, which is, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Favorite Toho character?
Toho, yes.
Oh,
Toho, of course, being the
oh,
long-running Bullet Hell franchise.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I know of this.
Yes.
I like the girl with the ribbons.
Okay.
I don't know any of them. I was just kind of just
I
throwing
was
out
like, that
a
probably
description.
that covers a lot of them, perhaps.
Yeah, that's the best I can do. I apologize.
That's all right. That's why this one.
Oh,
That's why this one is optional.
wait, Touhou?
Correct.
I'm
Toho.
I'm going to be so honest. I've never played it, but
I don't
they
think
all
I've.
look very cute. And if I have to pick a character,
Yes.
visually, um, I what's her name? Is it
What
forgive me?
What does
Is
she
it
look
Flandre?
like?
What's her
Oh,
is her name Flandre Scarlet?
yes, that
Is
is one
that
of
her name?
them.
I design wise, I'm gonna have to pick her. She
Yeah,
looks cute.
and she has those gem wing things going on.
It's very cute. She's both like, is that a tail? Is that a tail she has?
Yeah, well, see, Flandre Scarlet is a resident of the Scarlet Devil Mansion, which has uh, vampires and witches uh,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of cool. This is like the cool. I don't know. It's like the Goth House, kind of.
Yeah.
It's where all the
No,
the vampire witches live, and so you got
I
people
love.
with giant wings, and you got sleepy librarians, uh, maids that can stop time.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm like looking at this game now and maybe I play it. Maybe I
Uh,
give
well, see,
I never really played a lot of bullet hells, I'm not gonna lie.
no,
But
yeah, of course.
what it looks like there's a lot in this series.
Yeah,
Is
so
that correct?
the cool thing about Toho is that if Afrodeck Studios wanted to make a Toho game and be like release it on Steam for money, you could do that. Like Toho is kind of like there are some rules where it's like you can't just put like you could not, for instance, just put a guest character in your game. It has to be a Toho game.
I see.
I believe it cannot be 18 plus content, and there's probably a couple other rules I can't remember off the top of my head. But you know, the Toho fan game community is very large, and covers like a huge variety of genres.
Oh shoot!
No, this
This
is
you
kinda
have
cool.
you have opened us up to a whole new
Yes.
This is
world.
a whole world for us.
That is part of the pleasure of asking people about Toho is that people do not realize what Toho is. So like a good intro, I think, depending on what kind of styles of games you're into. Like there are visual novels, there are like, you know, deck builders,
There's, like,
first person
beat 'em
shooters.
ups.
Yeah, beat 'em ups,
Some
fighting games, kart racers.
Oh my god, there's an RTS like
That's so
freaking
funny.
XCOM in here.
Yes, yeah, I mean, if you are familiar with rhythm games, you know, Bad Apple is a standard of Japanese like console or like arcade rhythm games. So if you're familiar
Love
with
it.
Bad Apple, that is Toho.
Interesting. Okay.
Wow.
You have opened us up to a whole new thing. I will say for my answer, because I did a quick Google search,
Yes.
the one that drew me immediately was I think it was Yuka Kazami.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It says Lotus Land story and in the Phantasmagoria Flower View.
Yes, they also have very good long, like elaborate names for all of their the first one, which is not actually a bullet hell, it's like a block breaker kind of game, which is of course highly responsive to prayer. And I think about that, yeah, because you know this Toho comes from like the late '90s. It's been going around. It's been going since like '96.
Dang.
I'm like the PC '98, so it's been around for a while.
Been around for a while, and
Yeah.
now in our pond, and I am excited
Well,
to take a look.
glad to have you excited. Glad to slowly spread Toho propaganda throughout the indie game community over the years. Of people
Right.
going, let me try a Toho game, even if
We'll make a version. Estrella gets teleported to a new dimension, and she's like, "What is this?" And she becomes Toho.
because I mean Toho itself is also built off a lot of like it's all like yokai and mythology sort of stuff. Is kind of like broad stroke inspiration for characters, and you have of course people like Clown Piece, which I also highly recommend taking a look at Clown Piece every now and then, which is like a weird fairy clown who wears the American flag as a dress.
Oh, there she is.
Dang.
That's so funny.
Dang.
I'm gonna pick her. She looks funny. I like her.
But all the Toho questions aside, before we were in the wrap up section, we're getting close to 2 hours here, if you believe it. That's
Holy crap.
2 uninterrupted hours because we didn't even have any breaks. So
Breaks.
before
No breaks.
exactly, that's the benefit of, you know, there not being anyone else here. So we just kind of just plow through it nonstop. Do you have any other questions, non-promotional questions or statements before we start to wrap up? Otherwise, we will get to the promotional portions of those.
For the first time ever, Quessy has nothing to say. Well, there's a lot that I want to say, but it's all spoiler talk, and I'm not allowed to do that. Else, I feel the wrath of my team. So,
I feel like we had a really great 2-hour talk here.
Yeah. No, I was really thank you for putting us on your platform to kind of talk about our project and just even talking to us at all. Like it's always fun to talk about our journey
Yeah.
and for other
Yeah.
people's experiences.
Mhm.
No, I love to.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I think game development can often be very isolated.
Mhm.
And I think it's nice to where you can talk to people, especially where I travel. I'm often I am a team of one, and I'm often very busy and don't have time to talk to people for a meaningful length of time. After you hope they come up to my table, and then that not too many other people do, and I don't get distracted. So this show helps me do that, and helps create more like avenues, and ideally opens up more stuff. And you be like, hey, look, people talk to us on a show now. It's a thing we can put on our website or something, Or like I was able to talk to other developers in cases where I have a larger collection of people. But anyway, we mentioned it. We mentioned it constantly throughout the show because it was the star of the show. But if people are looking to find and learn more about your game, where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to a lot of places. First biggest place we would say is afroduckstudios.com. If you just Google Afroduck Studios, you'll find our website. It has all of our information and all of our social media, which transitioning to our social media, Afroduck Studios everywhere,
Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, which is now X, Blue Sky, and then most importantly, to actually see the development of the game, you can actually go to our Discord, which is called The Pond. I don't know if you'll be able to put a link there. I can give you a link to if you need it.
Yeah,
But
you can
our
just
web,
throw it in there. I have
yeah,
nothing blocking links within the
yeah,
chat if you are viewing that. If not, if you can
yeah,
put if you want to
yeah,
put in Discord, I can then transfer it over. But how can people get
yeah.
to that?
And I'll actually give you the link tree link as well because it
Yes.
has all of our links there too.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
and there's
I link to
there's a
your
link.
website, of course, in the show notes, which has all of this on your web page. So
Yep, yep. We try to communicate as much as we can. But yep,
yes,
Afroduck Studios everywhere. You can find us.
yes, go
You will
there.
find us.
If you're in the Midwest, perhaps um, you might see them in person. Uh,
Yes.
Mhm.
Stop by, get
We
yourself a duck, play the game.
get a duck.
Yes.
We can guarantee. Listen, you can't guarantee anything in life except death, taxes, and ducks from
Yes,
Afroduck. We will give
Yes.
you a duck.
We will. You'll get it.
100%. You'll get it. Even if
You'll
you don't
get that
want
duck.
it, you'll get a
they
duck.
they tried to give me two ducks.
That's right. We get it.
Uh, but no, I was like, I've got a duck. That's how guaranteed ducks are. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't escape.
Oh, and wish list our game on Steam,
Yes.
please, please, please.
Yes, the demo
Which,
is available for free download on Steam.
yep, and there will be patches that are going to be coming out soon with like updated mechanics and balance testing, and to hear all the information about what we are going to be releasing, just follow us. Discord is the best way to do it.
yes, and I look at folks in the process of doing that. I just added the game to my own wish list.
Oh,
Simple as that.
Yeah, easy.
It's
Simple,
painless.
easy.
Simple.
Yeah, you should also follow us on Instagram too if you aren't already.
Yes, follow people around everywhere. Do like, and then most importantly, the thing I stress about in like games, because given how preview focused it all is uh, then buy the thing. When people
Yes.
when people when the game actually comes out, I think games are often very preview centric, and then I'll hear about games constantly during the preview, and then not at all after it comes out. And that is in some ways the more important part of the game like when it's actually out and available.
Yes, which we will make it available as soon as we can. We just got to get funding.
Yes.
But we're getting there.
Yeah, that is an important part of this all. But anyhow, thank you all for being on the show today. James,
Thank you
Chrissy,
for having
Elena. True
Oh.
pleasure to have you all here. And we're going to head out of here. Thank you all. I just need to find my little, there's foobar. Found it. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.